understanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Good evening and welcome to Education Tonight on Teachers Talk Radio, the first of 2025. So happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year, Brent.
Happy New Year. It's amazing every year that goes by, you go, it can't be 2025.
I know,
I still think it's like 2005. It's weird when you hear the new year and you write the new year for the first time and you go, no, it can't be. And it takes a bit of getting used to, and you sort of start counting back the dates and the years. And yeah, happy 2025. We made it this far.
Yeah, we're making it this far, and we're going to go straight in with kind of a big show tonight because we want to kind of. You had some success over Christmas. One of my lie-ins was rudely awakened to a teacher from Brent, Poland, on LBC, on Matthew Wright, talking about Robbie Williams, and you branded it. Teachers representing Teachers Talk Radio, which is great. So brownie points to you. Do you wear the T-shirt for the video?
I did actually.
Yeah,
I did. Yeah, it was recorded. Sadly, I think because they normally clip them. They normally sort of. I think they didn't because it was close to Christmas. So they didn't do much because they normally stick the guests they have on visually, because Tom's done it a couple of times. I was hoping that they'd clip maybe a 2-minute clip and then we could use that, but they didn't. So it is on there somewhere on their listen back. But the premise was they contacted me the day before saying, look, the Robbie Williams thing was he said about failure. What your thoughts on that? And I completely identified with it, and I think a lot of people do. So it was good to do that. Good to represent Teachers Talk Radio, and it was an interesting story. The fact that Robbie Williams wants to go back and do his exams at his age because he felt like a failure. So it was a really good show, and the rest of the call-ins afterwards were really interesting as well. So it was one of those good hours discussion about education and the power of education as well. And even some successful people like Robbie Williams still consider some of the things they went through at school still play on them 30, 40 years later.
Yeah. So unfortunately, though, you just ruined my surprise with the happy birthday. But so it's your birthday today, Brent. So party hats on. Woo! Happy birthday to you.
You got 4 candles, or is that handles for forks?
Well, I don't know what's happened to this hat. It's as I said to you, it's a hat that we've had in the family for years, and but I think it's time to maybe throw it out. But I don't know. I'm thinking Elvis Costello. They look more like
I'm thinking JK with reality, like him doing that kind of 1990s JK thing,
Yeah, or Boy George. I'm going to go with Elvis Costello. I think with the new spectacles for 2025. So, well happy. But it's that as I said, it's Are you
on the varifocals yet?
Well, no, but they're for short sightedness. So if I kind of turn to the side, I disappear into like a mist as soon as I look at anybody. So I'm trying to do this thing at the minute when I'm doing this. My wife said I think I might fall into the old school teacher with the chain. Thinking of the chain.
No.
I think I get the chain.
It'll be elbow patches next.
Yeah, I've got to get the chain. I think that's the only way to side, because I keep putting them down and I don't know where they are because then I go into like the mist.
But before I got the varifocals, I was doing the
Yeah.
So that was the sign that I needed varifocals, and since
I'll take the hat off, so we kind of take him seriously as educational specialist for the rest of the thing. But happy birthday, mate, and hope you have a few kind of celebratory drinks and candles and cakes and everything else over the weekend. Unbelievably, although it's like minus whatever 10 in Derbyshire, I've actually been bitten by a mozzie today. Unbelievably on my face. How does that happen in kind of that temperature? Kind of, I don't know how they're surviving in this kind of temperature. God only knows. They're getting stronger, aren't they? They're getting stronger the mozzies. Yeah. So we're going to hit the Robbie Williams story. So Robbie Williams kind of kind of said he's obviously got to doing the rounds because new film out and everything. But we've known this for a while with Robbie Williams about his relationship with school, particularly because on the first album he did as a solo artist,
Life Through a Lens, 96.
Life Through a Lens, yeah. There was a kind of famous hidden track at the end called "Hello, Sir." And so the lyrics of it kind of, "Hello, sir, remember me? I'm the man you thought I'd never be. The boy who you reduced to tears. The lad you called Thingy for 6 whole years. That's right. My name's Bob, the one who landed the pop star's job. The one you told, look, don't touch. The kid that wouldn't amount to much." Okay, so you can see there, although there was anger in that song, wasn't there? There was a genuine kind of thought of, I've been let down by society, let down by the education system. But I think he was also saying, I am one of many working class children who thought a little bit differently, maybe had some neurodiversity, and was treated appallingly at the time by the education system. So I guess our question is, is this likely still going to be happening, or does it still happen? And kind of what are the remedies and fixes from?
Well, I do remember. I remember buying the album and listening to and then you had to wait a couple of minutes. The track way into, you had the CD, so you had to literally fast forward the CD disc to come to that song. And I remember listening to that in the mid-90s and completely identifying it as I'd been 11 plus and being, I'm going to say, traumatized, because in the Northern Ireland system you had 11 plus, not 11 plus, and you failed 11 plus, you went to secondary school and you were just called stupid. That's just a matter of the fact. We were considered second class educated children. We were told we weren't as good. We had the grammar school kids who were told they were clever and more intelligent. Now, I transferred at 16 up to the grammar school and expected to be completely destroyed by these kids who we were told were more intelligent, more clever and everything else. And even our secondary school teachers were like, "Oh, you're not as good as the kids up in there." And even within our secondary school, you had streamed as well. And as some of my friends, and I always think of them, and I think of the Carol Dweck situation, that where they're in a parallel universe, they passed their 11 plus and their life chances were completely different. And those of us that came out of the secondary school who were resilient, who had what I call rescuing factors, and those rescuing factors are parental attitudes. They overrid. So my parents always overrid that and says, "Look, son, you didn't get your 11 plus, but don't worry about it. We know how good you are. You'll be all right in the end." I always had them driving me and pushing me and motivating me and saying, "Look, don't worry, son, you'll get there in the end." And you think, as a young lad who I'm coming to terms now that I'm probably neurodiverse myself, it's plainly obvious that I too was having that situation very much like Robbie. And at the time, my best friend, we've now come to understand, he too was also very badly dyslexic, and that was only diagnosed at 23, 24, and none of that was picked up at our secondary school, because we just assumed you failed the 11 plus, you're not as clever, you're not going to go to university. And with me, in my situation, because of my family background, that motivated me. And I identified with Robbie's sort of, what would I call it, fight back, his spirit, his kind of, I am not going to be. And I'd say my educational philosophy was very much like his, of like almost to you.
I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them, yeah.
No, I go so far as sometimes I actually felt that I was actually hostile to some of my teachers who I felt that almost stereotyped me and put me in a box and said, "Well, Poland, you're not going to." We had an English teacher turn around, walk around the class and say, C, D, D, C, or maybe in a good day, Poland. So I completely understand. And as an educator, one of the things I've always tried to do is look for those type of children and say to themselves, "You could be brilliant. You could be brilliant. Do the opposite." And when I read in our masters, I studied our masters all those years ago.
Yeah.
It's the first time I read Carol Dweck. And the first time I read Carol Dweck, it blew my mind and went, "Dear God, this is it. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy." And I'm lucky that I had people in my corner who overrode it and didn't accept it. But there were friends of mine and people I'd seen who did. And that's where I admire someone like Robbie Williams, because I think he's somehow used that adversity and that kind of anger and that passion and his skill to override the education system. He didn't get where he is today because of the education system. In fact, if anything, it's motivated him to prove them wrong, but it's still, he's carrying with him that trauma that he was written off and called stupid. So completely identify with that. And I did.
Do you think the education system still has a problem with identifying kind of what success looks like? Is success still basically kind of getting a certain job and you know, and that type of thing? So, and the arts doesn't really come into that. The arts is still seen as a kind of a bit of a kind of cop out, a bit of a waste of time, a bit of a kind of, you know, waste of, you know, industry, certainly in the kind of working classes anyway. Maybe if you get kind of up the social strata, maybe you get a different reaction. You know, an artist in a kind of affluent family is seen differently to an artist within the kind of working class family.
When you take what we saw, I think we saw during the COVID crisis, the curtains got pulled back, and we really saw how education outcomes are gamed because we had the rogue algorithm. And what did we find out? We found out that kids, working class kids who are in areas where their postcodes aren't as affluent, and yet they're brilliant kids, were being discriminated against because the algorithm couldn't turn around. And that was me, because I remember having a conversation with my university lecturer of sociology, and he put together Catholic, poor, failed 11 plus, parents with no qualifications. By every single social measure, someone like me shouldn't have been anywhere near university whatsoever. In fact, when I got to do started my A-levels, my A-level teacher looked at my first politics, made a piece of work and said, "Where's the full stop in there?" I wrote like 6 pages without a full stop in a paragraph. I had no idea what I was doing. Somehow got through education, because literally it was expected. You aren't expected to do well. So I overrode my schooling until I got to the grammar school to prove a point. But in my case, it was about that hunger, desire, that thing. And I've always noticed it's got to be, the children have to have that passion, that resilience, that stoicism. They have to have that something thing. And that's where completely, I think, someone like Robbie Williams gets through the system, not because of everything that was done in school. It's in spite. He has got there in spite of. Now, don't get me wrong, I did have a handful of amazing teachers. My art teacher was one of the saving grace and rescue factors. The man used to stay behind after school and do art with me, and I really identified and clicked with this guy. And he sometimes pulled me to one side and says, "Come on, Poland, stop doing stupid things." And you can have teachers in those type of schools that rescue. And I'm going to say, you know, that's the kind of captain, my captain, sir, and, you know, standing on top of there and doing that. And that's what some of us are still in the game to do, is to be that person or be that type of teacher that sometimes can rescue and save a Robin Williams. How many get through the net? How many?
Are the numbers too big though to have a rescuing teacher? So is it that there's so many children, certainly in working class areas, that are struggling? Therefore, the teacher who could dedicate a bit of a time to a few to do that rescuing factor is completely swamped and completely overwhelmed by that now. So it kind of makes it even hard, even though they want to. It actually makes it so challenging. You can't actually kind of reach those children, even if you wanted to. Just because, you know, what would you do? You'd have like 30, 40, 50, wouldn't you, in an after school club all the time, because, you know, what else is there for them to do?
And with the time pressure and the number of children you've got and the kind of factorization, the kind of, we said the McDonaldization of education, you're just basically, you don't have the time to sit down. And that's the thing my art teacher did. He stayed behind after school and projects. And I had what I can only consider those conversations with an adult who weren't my parents, and he was a very open and honest man. He had some struggles in his own life. He had some demons he was working through. And I sensed he liked me. I sensed that he believed in me. I sensed that he actually genuinely saw through, not the kid who puts his hand in class and asks 50 questions, because that was me. You know, "Sir, why am I doing this?" I was sometimes perceived as naughty, and I wasn't. I was just curious. I wanted to learn. I was told to shut up, take a textbook, and copy down for silence for an hour. My God, how bad were the lessons back in the 90s? Take out a textbook. Remember the geography textbook, this thick, called WOF, and you're like, take out your textbook by WOF, and you're like, you spent a whole hour. I think what we're doing with the kids now is like, wow, you know, we know pedagogy a lot better. We're working 10 times harder with these children. And in a weird way, I work 10 times harder than most of the teachers have taught me, because I know we can be the rescuing factors. But yet, I look at my auntie. My auntie was a teacher for 24 years and retired at my age. She actually retired at my age. It's harder now to put in those hours. It's harder now to do the job because of bureaucracy, because the priority is exam results, the priority is gaming the system. you can't be that kind of teacher.
Those schools who have obviously they've made a kind of, I guess, ideological choice. They've positioned themselves to do so, and we're not going to comment on why you're getting dressed. Is it more they made a decision to kind of go down a track which is like, well, Ofsted basically want this, parents want this, it's outcome driven, it's to move that data from one spreadsheet to another, therefore that's going to equal success. They're going to get the numbers, they're going to get the Ofsted stamp, they're going to use it for their marketing. Are we saying that's just a wrong approach? Because those children, in some areas, you do have those kind of academies that have done that. They've taken that ideological choice. They are in kind of poor areas. And ultimately, they've decided that the benefit of having the qualification at the end outweighs everything else. So if they can get a good grade at GCSE, that is the end of the game. When they leave us, ultimately, they end up with a good grade. And they've decided that is their position, and I can see that, can't you? I can see a position there where you think, right, that is the game that we're playing, and therefore that's the end of that discussion.
But to get those exam results, do I have to destroy the child's mental health? Do I have to give them exams that they don't want to do? Do I have to almost practically do it for the children? Here you go, because I think now I'm working harder than the actual children doing the exam. Because the emphasis on, they're your exam results. And I know Tom Rogers often says that the teachers, they're not your exam results. They're the children's results. And on results day, I get parents going, the children have done really, really well. Well, thank you for all you've done. I'm like, they've done it. I was giving feedback today in mock exams. I looked at one kid who's really turned it around and looked and says, you're doing this. I'm just helping you along, but you're doing this. And one of his friends came over afterwards and says, do you know, he nearly cried? And I nearly cried because I'm looking at a kid that was kind of written off. And it was one of those moments you just have that moment you think, I hope he remembers this, because I'm telling him he's actually made a lot of progress and he's doing it. And his dad at parents' evening was going, something's changed. And I went, I don't know what's changed. He's matured, he's growing up, he's doing well. And giving that quality feedback to that kid and saying, you've got a level 6, you're predicted a level 4. You know what? Let's go for a 7. And what I'm saying now is, what's the possibilities with him? And what is it I'm doing? I'm facilitating it, but he's doing it. And that's what we need more of, is that potential and that growth and this idea that they could be more, because I think there's just so much negativity about a lot of the young people. The negative messages they get beaten down, and everything becomes about academic success because that's the metric by measurement. And yet, that child may end up with a level 6. And on paper, they go, it's only a level 6. Some of the greatest achievements I've had as a teacher has been watching children who are getting level 4s, but yet predicted level 1s and 2s. For me, I'm sorry, that's a hell of a lot more valuable than somebody who's predicted a level 8, level 9, getting a level 8, level 9. I'm really, really sorry. But sometimes it's those children that you look back and you think, yeah, they've got a certain grade, but they got 50% attendance. They went through an absolute nightmare. Or they're a looked after child. Or they've come from such a terrible background. Yes, they've got like a level 3, but by God, that level 3 is amazing achievement for that child. And then you see them a couple of years later and they're thriving. But, on paper, somebody comes in and says, you've got these children at level 3, level 4, you don't look successful. And I couldn't give one flipping monkeys what they think, because I know in my heart of hearts, the story behind that child is a hell of a lot more than the data.
And that's the thing, though. But ultimately, it takes, the people of us, they've got a bit more kind of, we've been around the block a little bit. We're a bit chiseled. We've had a few knocks. We've got what's the song? We're getting down. We're getting a
few more middle aged today. Thanks for that.
Yeah, but ultimately, you need that the security of bravery, don't you, to actually kind of stand up and say, the grades are grades. I don't, to a point, obviously we care, but it's not going to be the big thing. And try and ride that out and try and be kind of, but if you're a young teacher, and we know that there's a lot of NQTs in potentially kind of failing schools, or schools that are struggling to recruit just to fill, and they've been put in positions sometimes, I think, unfairly by some schools, because that they've made that decision for their finances for whatever reason, that they're going to backfill with younger teachers. More inexperienced teachers, they ultimately have to feel like they have to play a bit more of a game to, survive in the profession.
Because the metric of judging a teacher is by exam results or value added. It's not by.
If you're a 22-year-old and you're going into this is your first job at university, what else do you know? And a head teacher is saying to you, this is the matrix you're going to get, scrutinized by, observed by, appraised on. Then what else can you do? It's a very, very brave 22-year-old that's going to go, no, I'm going to work on their, well-being. I'm going to work on their aspirations. I'm going to make them, believe in themselves. That's a very hard sell, isn't it?
But you are now encouraged to analyze your data and go, why is your free school meal? Why is your EAL percentage that? Why are your boys doing as well as your girl? And you start looking at all these details. You really think there are those type of patterns that I have that level of control? Do you really think I have that much influence? In the end of it, the student themselves is the one who goes in that example. And they've got to have that confidence. And that's the thing that's really important to take away from the Robbie Williams thing, is how he was made to feel like a failure, and how many out there who don't try any longer because they're made to feel like failures, because the education system has weighed them. We have the most examined children in Western Europe. Why the flipping hell do we examine them in primary school? What is the purpose and functions of SATs? It ain't to do my daughter any good whatsoever, because they flipping well need to destroy their confidence. And I was this close to taking my daughter out of school when saying, you can take your SATs and you can shove them with the sun don't you know what, because it destroyed the confidence of my daughter, because she was made to feel humiliated because she just couldn't do a mad SATs at 7 years old in front of the other children. What an absolute disgusting thing to do. And that will leave that mark on her, the same as the 11 plus left the mark on me. And that is what we're doing to these children. We're almost creating these self-fulfilling prophecies, because kids rank themselves. They have this self-actualization of, here's the clever kids and here's the not so clever kids. And some of the behavior is driven by that, because I've given up. Why? Because I'm not bothered, because I can never achieve. And that is what's part of our problem within the education, is creating success and failure. And even if you look at the exam system is set up that some succeed and some fail. In order for people to get grades, you have to have some schools failing, don't you? Because in order to get, for every child that has to get a level 9, there's a child that has to get a level 1 or 2. So if
you're going to put it through a bell curve, you're going to have that, isn't it? But it is incredible that, a man ultimately estimated net worth of $300 million, he's still thinking like this. He's still got that impact. So I think it just shows you the importance of that age group and the vulnerability of that age group, and how long that kind of failure lasts. The impact of those words at that time, are stronger, aren't they? They mean more in some respects, because on every measure he's been a success, hasn't he? Much more of a success than I've got more GCSEs, I've got more qualifications than Robbie Williams, but I'll never get kind of anywhere near that net worth or that kind of success. I
can tell you at 18, when I got my exam results the day before other people, because our school brought our A-level results, and we went up and sat with the head teacher, and the head teacher, what exam results do you need to get into college? And I did well beyond. And I know that a lot of the other guys in the other 2 colleges, they were getting them the following day. So I was out celebrating. And never forget overhearing somebody at the bar going, how did that little insert a swear word get those grades? He went to that school. How did he get those grades? And the satisfaction I had almost was, to this day, I'll never forget it, because it was literally, yeah, you know what? Because maybe I wasn't stupid after all. Maybe actually you guys who were up in your grammar school in your ivory towers thinking you were better than people like me, looking down. And I do have, I'm not going to lie, I have that little bit of a chip on my shoulder about some things where it drives and motivates me, because I don't like to be felt second class, inferior, or down. And I identify with kids who I feel sometimes. And the area you and I used to teach in has got a lot of that. It drives me absolutely doolally when I get kids saying to me, well, sir, what do you expect? I'm just from this area. And I'm looking going, I've had the same idea as you. I wouldn't be where I am now. And it's, I don't know if we have enough people in the education system who are thinking like this any longer. I just don't know.
I worry, and this is another worry, is that there aren't many kind of people from the working class as teachers either. So it's actually difficult for them to empathize with this position a lot of the time. And that's another challenge, I think, within the profession. Obviously, we want people who are highly qualified and people who are kind of experts and people who are, however, sometimes does that come at a cost of having it from quite a small, pulling from a small group of people anyway. Those people who basically
people who struggled at school, if you have people who are neurodiverse teachers themselves, maybe they can identify with kids who are SEND, and there are times I can sometimes identify with some children and think I can understand why they're struggling in mathematics, because I'll be honest, you put numbers, you put letters, keep them apart. Algebra, just I can't. I'm going to admit to you,
just keep them separate.
X plus Y equals Z. As soon as you put numbers and letters together, my brain just goes, they're numbers, they're letters. What? And honestly, and I've got a geography degree, and I can look at statistics all day long, and I can look at charts and diagrams. But there are certain things that I cannot do. Or somebody does origami. As soon as somebody starts doing origami and following stuff, I can't do it. And it's a humbling feeling when you know yourself there are things you can't do, and you look at some children, and it's a very humbling experience as a teacher, and you think, I assume the children could do that, and you go, actually, I shouldn't assume that, because people could assume that I should be able to do algebra with my level of education. I quite simply can't.
And I've always had really good relationships with children when you just say, actually, I don't know how to do that. Can someone show me how to do it? It's just genuine. I just don't know how to do that. My brain cannot just process that. I mean, like, there's that kind of the quiz show, the 1% Club, where we watch that, and there's some questions, and you watch them, and they kind of fly across the screen, and you just almost don't have to think about it at all. It just skips through. And there's another one, and then my daughter's answering it within a second, and I'm going, I don't even know where the question is. I don't even know what they're talking about. I have no idea what you are talking about here. So it just shows you kind of how the brain works. We're going to go to some ads in a minute, but are we generally thinking that, if a Robbie Williams came around to a kind of a comprehensive school, the same thing would happen? Do we think?
I think it would depend now on the comprehensive school, the postcode. I think you've got inconsistency there. I actually think we'd identify Robin Williams a lot more now with his needs, i.e., I think we'd have the facility to know he is dyslexic and have the facility to know that he is, but equally, there are some schools who are ultra successful that don't have music in the curriculum, and they don't have music. See, creativity's got out of the curriculum, so how could we help Robbie Williams? Well, play to his strengths and his creativity. Well, some schools don't have those GCSE options, so it all depends on where Robbie Williams is. It all depends on his postcode, doesn't it? It all depends on the quality of his local school. So you can't say definitively if Robin Williams was coming along now, would the situation be any different, because we don't know the context of the area. He might well be, but he might not well be, depending on where he is.
We could fall on arguments that actually suggest that in some situations it could be a lot worse, because at least he had the drama department as a kind of outlay, and that wouldn't have been there at all. So presumably, if we kind of run this scenario, hypothesize for a minute, he would have probably been therefore just been excluded or just walked out.
Or heavily medicated.
Yeah, but if he goes into this kind of walking out, he could fall into the kind of
boundary lines, not because he has a naughty side. He has a naughty side to him. You know what I mean? He has that little bit of a naughty side, but that naughty side in a different context could be very naughty side, and therein lies how his life could have been. As you say, this is the God thing, how his life could be completely different. But what we can't say between the two of us who work in education is that things have changed. Things have. We've identified people with needs a lot more, so we would identify a Robbie Williams a lot more. But we're in the middle of a SEND crisis, which means, would we be able to meet his needs? We might know that he needs this help, but are we actually able to meet his local authority going to meet his needs? So there's the thing now of we may actually know what his sort of underlying issues are, but that does not necessarily mean we're going to be able to help him, because the capacity issue we have in schools.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Anyway, so we say kind of a 2025, big hello to John.
Hello, John Cat. How are you doing, John?
I wonder if you forgot your cue there. This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore a full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. You can see the web link kind of going across the bottom. We're also sponsored by US Study, sorry. I was going to do the gag, then I got the company wrong. US Study. Have you got a better American accent?
Well, we got Boston.
I don't know what that was. Do you
Boston.
Boston. Your students could study in the USA. USA Study is your one-stop platform for guiding students through their college application journey. Access up-to-date resources on universities, programs, scholarships, and application requirements all in one place. Get easy access tools, personalized timelines, expert tips, application templates, and exclusive webinars with admission officers to help your students stand out. Visit usstudy.co.uk because every student deserves the opportunity to shine with US Study. And well, also,
Adam, I do like that. What I do like about that is, I think cultural capital. I know friends of mine that did Camp America, and kids actually have done studying in other countries, in particular like the USA, and come back, and obviously it's been amazing for them to broaden their horizons and stuff. So that's worth a look at if you are wanting your students to get some more cultural capital, more diversity, and it shouldn't just be for the private school sector. That could be for kids that we're talking about in our context that we're talking about as well. I think we need to look at ways to get some more opportunities for our kids, and that looks like a really good opportunity that some could avail of, that maybe they wouldn't think that they could take the opportunity, but maybe look into it.
Okay, I'll just clarify, it's usastudy.co.uk, not US Study. It's usastudy.co.uk.
And we've got Teachers Talk Connect, haven't we?
Yes, so here we are. So Teachers Talk Radio, I need to say US Connect then. Teachers Talk Radio Connect. Teachers join our team in Manchester on the 1st of March. So you can see it coming across the bottom. It's our biggest ever free event. We've
you say?
Well, remember you said you'd kind of, were you going to do an Elon Musk thing and kind of,
don't you compare me? Don't you start that carry on.
The first 100.
He's not buying Liverpool Football Club. Don't you start that carry on. You do not compare me to Elon Musk. Thank you very much. No chance. Right. Yeah. Leave it out. So, yeah. And he won't be appearing on stage with us either.
Yeah. And we can say, Brent, that we are going to do a little skit in the middle of the day. We're going to do an Education Tonight live on the day in Manchester on the 1st of March. So if you're a fan of the show, book your tickets to be involved in a live debate. We'll pick something that's very kind of topical at the time and get your blood pressure racing mid-lunch as you kind of tune on your sandwiches. So that'll be kind of it. But we've also got Lee Parkinson, Mr. P, Kate Jones, and Vic Goddard. Attend subject-specific CPD sessions and experience amazing network opportunities. Tickets are free for teachers and leaders, and you can go to ttrradio.org to find out more and get your ticket today. So I'm genuinely looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to being involved, forward to being there with the Teacher Talk Radio team, looking forward to doing a bit of a lunchtime crack laugh with you. So that'll be really entertaining. So
they are good. I tell you what's good is put names to faces, people you've seen online. It's actually really good to meet some of your educational heroes and realize actually they're just
like us.
Well, villains. But you and it is good actually to have the humanize and put the names to face and make connections with people as well. I did the history one recently. It was really interesting, and it gives you a good insight into some of the cutting edge, because that's good, really good CPD. Make good links and connections. And also, what do you get when you get a bunch of teachers in a room? You do get good banter, good fun as well. So it's actually quite good fun as well. Yeah.
You can also get Brent Poland merch at the stand. It's just like signed copies of the 2025 calendar, which is out in all good shops. No. Not yet. Not yet. We were going to do a calendar with your kind of when you went wherever you went in the summer with your kind of holiday pics. Where'd you go? What island was it?
Borneo.
Yeah, where you went to Borneo. Yeah. Anyway, back to the show. The schools bill had a bit of a kind of interesting evening last night because
kind of got hijacked, didn't it?
Well, it feels like we've had 48 hours of mentioning a certain person's name, so I'm not going to try and mention that name. I think they've got it on enough kind of press, but ultimately it did get a bit kind of sidetracked. So if we just put to kind of Bridget Phillipson's kind of tweets,
and these are not always words I say for government, but I do actually genuinely feel sorry for the education minister, and actually. I'm not a big Keir Starmer fan, but I do also feel sorry for him as well, because there he was the other day trying to wheel out NHS reforms, and he just got completely sidetracked. It almost feels like government by social media at the moment.
Yeah,
and I'm a bit worried about that, because I kind of, whatever, regardless of the political opinions, you want government to be able to govern. And at the moment, I don't think government is being able to govern or being allowed to govern without this kind of distractions that is being caused by bad faith actors. And what's really sad, and this is my opening take on this, what's really, really sad is that we need school reform. We need money. We need education to be prioritized. And what really is infuriating for me, and I'm minding my P's and Q's here, is how dare they hijack what we need is reform school bills to be going through and government to be doing the job of governing when it comes to education. And it completely gets sidetracked because there are people trying to score points, play games, and it's playing games with the futures of our children. And that's really got me very angry, because education didn't get much of a say when it comes to the election.
But it was interesting that she was genuinely angry as well, wasn't she? She did the rounds today.
I think she was very, she was scathing about it.
Yeah, it spiked her, because I think actually, whether you kind of think it's right or wrong or whatever, I think in this case, this bill is trying to come from a genuine place. Ultimately you could debate whether it's kind of right or wrong, good or bad or whatever, but I think the kind of the moral sense of this bill is actually from the right place, isn't it? It's about kind of trying to do something after kind of.
I'm no fan of the government, but I can acknowledge that they're trying to solve some of the problems in education, and they've come up with a program that will try, hopefully, to do that. And that was about to be shot down because politicians are trying to create narratives, weaponize what I can only describe as horrible situations, and really, which is connected to education in children. And that's what's really frustrated me, is that is this how we're going to be governed from now on, where just everything is going to be that level of criticism and knocking it down. And actually, it doesn't matter if it's a good bill by what government. If it was a Conservative government and it was, for instance, the online safety bill, I supported that. I don't support the Conservative government, but I can sometimes we can be pragmatic enough to go, actually, there is good stuff in that bill. We need this stuff in that bill. That bill should have went through Parliament. And the shenanigans that's going on is actually distracting from the reality of what's happening in our education system. And that's really frustrating, that us who are impacted in this are screaming, saying we need help in schools, and the government's trying, to come up with a bill. But unfortunately, people are playing games, I think, with our children. And the general public, I'll be honest with you, I think this, I've been saying this for a long while, need to start prioritizing education and start standing up for education, and literally saying, look, we need our schools to be sorted out. And I think that's got to come from communities saying enough's enough. We need our schools back to where they should be. And I think that's where I'm at sometimes, thinking, well, we know as teachers, but we need help from communities. We need people to start looking at education and saying, come on, we know what's going on in schools. We know there's a SEND crisis. We know there's children dropping off registers. We know we've had violence in our local community from youngsters, antisocial behavior. This stuff is starting to really bite. And I'm seeing things that I've never seen before in our community, because we need education to actually start solving some of society's problems, and then schools to be functioning, to be able to try and help
Yeah.
And at
Well,
the moment,
should we just go through some of the kind of the key points, Bill? Because we've got a couple of 15 minutes left. So the first one, the main is around kind of teacher training. And interesting, on my podcast app today, kind of on the way home, I listened to a couple of podcasts on the way home, and the adverts all through it was about teacher training and join teaching and that type of thing. And there's been a bit of a push generally on all media over Christmas, FE and secondary schools. And obviously, interestingly, kind of one of their big manifesto claims was the kind of 6,500 new teachers. It says the department recognises that high quality teaching is a factor within school and makes the biggest difference to a child's education, giving knowledge and skills to succeed throughout life. So I guess there's two parts to this. One is the standard of teacher training from the universities or the companies that provide the training is good enough in the first place. And then there's the issue of kind of ongoing CPD afterwards and having the resources and time to succeed within that.
Honestly, no, because what's been trained at university to what the reality is in schools is disconnected. The mission creep of what a modern teacher is nowhere near where our starting point is. Where do you start with modern
universities?
What's our job?
Yeah, I think universities go too heavy on the science of teaching.
Pedagogy. They do a lot about
and the kind of the academicness of a teacher. And actually, kind of what you need is to kind of get in and actually kind of, if you're willing to kind of sign up, what you really need is almost like an apprenticeship type role, and being an apprentice teacher almost to start off, and actually having an apprenticeship for kind of being a teacher. Would that not be a better thing all around anyway?
Honestly, there are some people that shouldn't be teachers, just the same way there are some people that shouldn't be police officers, because you've got a degree doesn't qualify you to be a teacher.
Mm.
And there are people, for instance, who were teaching assistants who graduated into teaching. And that's not happening as much. It's the recruitment retention. It's what do you want from a teacher needs to be defined. What is a modern teacher's job? Now needs to be defined, because I am struggling to know, am I a psychologist, a social worker, a data manager, an organizer of a curriculum? What is my actual job? Because at the moment I've got a kid saying, I need to go to the toilet, I've got a medical issue, and money. You don't. I mean, I find myself now switching roles with my wife as a clinical psychologist and thinking I need a psychology degree to work this kid's issue, this kid's issues, never mind my own issues. It's just getting out of hand. I don't know what
the classic medical condition at the minute being when you drink 5 litres of water, you can need the toilet every 20 minutes.
Well, because now everybody comes with a sort of like an issue, you know what I mean? And the resilience, the stoicism, and just simply, I don't know what are we babysitters, or are we looking after children, or what's the point? And I think that's what I guess
that is the problem. The starting point is basically kind of
what's the purpose of education?
What is the job? Before you even start thinking about training? Because I was, before teaching, I worked in kind of systems, and then I worked in kind of training and development after that. And the first thing is to identify the need, isn't it? What is it that you're training before you train? And I'm not convinced that we actually know what the job is enough to kind of, I mean, some of these job descriptions, if you go onto TES tonight or any of the kind of job sites, they're like pages and pages long now, aren't they? Job descriptions, job specifications. Are you really saying you're going to train someone in a year to do all those things?
But there's also the aspect as well. I'm an altruistic teacher. I go into teaching because I care. I do after school clubs, don't have to be asked to do it. I'll do residentials, don't have to be asked to do it. I'll stop a kid in the corridor and pick them up on their uniform, don't have to be asked to do it. A lot of the colleagues coming in now, sorry, that's not my job. Here's my job, I leave at 3:15, and that's what I'm doing. And I don't know any longer that people invest the time into communities. Teachers used to be living in communities, working in communities, be part of the community, and integrate in the community. Men talking, your traditional Hogwartsy type thing, Does that happen as much now? Are you a part of the community?
Is it really interesting, the show before Christmas with Alan, wasn't it? Alan Shew about, about the kind of the prisonness of a school, and the kind of the walls have come up, the fences are up, rightly.
Very industrial.
Rightly, we're providing safe environments. But I don't know. Sometimes we went for a walk over Christmas past a kind of local school, and now there's like a, I don't know, 30-foot fence. When there used to be a tiny little wall, there's now a kind of 30-foot kind of wire fence that kind of runs across the top. A massive security gate with cameras and everything else. Loads of signs about kind of do not enter. That carries on for about another, I don't know, half a kilometre where their playing fields used to be. And that's where me and my brother used to go and play football at the weekend. So the school, and we all met there to kind of play. So, and then I remember the head teacher kind of coming out, and he knew us, even though I didn't go to that school. Do you know what I mean? So there was a kind of check and balance there anyway about the local community. And, you know, and we used to then play at the weekend. Our football team used to play on that field. Now, those fields are, I looked at the football pitches, the position, and the frames of the goalposts were completely rusted. Everything had gone into decay over the back end of the field. And obviously, a small primary school can't manage these massive fields, but it's within their land. So therefore, they've got a gate up. So not only is that massive space the community is just not using anymore because of these fences. Yeah, that used to be somewhere we could just open a back gate and just go in, you know, and everyone was happy about that.
Well, the question is it just a job now? Are we just like every other job?
Yeah.
Are we semi-privatized? Or are we basically, there's my contract, there's the hours I work, this is the job I do, this is what I'm required to do, and yet
some teachers, there's honest teachers that say that, don't they? You know, they wouldn't say it on record, but you know, you have this conversation.
And I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with those people, Adam. I don't have a problem as long as they do their job and as long as they contribute. What I do have a problem with is lazy teachers who don't do their job, who don't pick up a discipline, who let the side down. Call me an old-fashioned football player, but you're only as strong as your weakest link. And there are far too many people sometimes in education who hand the responsibility on to other people who can be bothered. And I think there is a deeper conversation we have to have in the teaching profession of those who are doing the job, who are carrying others, who quite frankly sometimes are ducking and diving any responsibilities. The ones that stick the videos on 2 weeks before the end of term, the ones who come up with the excuses not to be in work, the ones who, I'm sorry, actually need to reflect and say, is this the profession for them any longer?
Are they
in the staff room, the moon hoovers, the absolute wind-up merchants who just basically sometimes eke a living out of teaching and probably should reflect and say, are they doing, and I am serious, are they doing the children any service? They're the type of people that are drifting through the education system that were teaching me, some of them. And I'll be honest with you, we still have some people in education who are doing that. And unfortunately, there are good people in education who are driven out of education. And there are those bludgers, duckers and divers who somehow get promoted and end up in positions of authority telling other people
that is wrong. But I also accept there are some people that just go, this is my lot. I want to be a teacher and I want to do it between the hours of 8 and 5 o'clock. And that is what I'm going to give. And if someone's going to come to me at kind of 4:30 and tell me to do the things, I'm just going to say, no, I'm not ducking and diving. I'm not shirking responsibility. You should have got organised, manager, and done this within the hours. I am now going home. And is that not also right?
If they're doing a job and they're contributing and they're doing their job efficiently,
yeah, but define the job. Define the job. That's the thing, isn't it?
Well, define the job means that they're not shirking responsibilities. They're not passing problems on. They're dealing with problems themselves. So they're not saying these children are misbehaving for me. Can you sort them out? They're actually trying to deal with behavior problems to a certain degree. I'm not saying, you know, going straight for let's get that kid out of the class. We all know those people that don't work very hard and who basically work hard at not working and then come up with excuses and reasons why. We've got to take some responsibility. Absolutely. Yeah. And there are colleagues of mine who do work extremely efficiently when they're in school. And you think, how are they not taking any marking home? Because at lunchtime, they're doing marking. They don't see them socializing because they use the time in school. A lot of respect for those people who are really efficient at working in school, and I know a few people who are like that.
Should they be using their lunches? Yeah,
it's up to them. It's up to them. They choose to do that, don't they?
Well, it might be, but if they're burnt out in like 3 years and have to leave, was that a good idea? Anyway, I'm going to just move on to some of the other points. We're going to cover something on pay and conditions coming up shortly in a few weeks. So I'm just going to leave that. However, I noticed on X tonight that Bridget Phillipson's got herself in a bit of hot bother by saying that a lot of academies pay over the odds anyway and pay higher wages. I don't know how that's going to land. Going forward. I don't think many people.
Where are these academies?
I think she'll be asked to kind of prove that one as she does the media rounds in a couple of weeks.
They'll find themselves having a lot of applications.
The strengthening of curriculum, the curriculum assessment review is now well underway, and it should be with us again. Labour with reviews, autumn 2025. That's next September, isn't it?
We've been in opposition for 14 years. You think you'd have that ready to go by now?
Well, it's a bit. I think that's a bit of a weak one, really, in this bill, because that should have been ready with this bill, really.
Ready to go. Research for that years ago.
I mean, that means that it's not going. That's going to be September 27 start probably, because the year would have started in 26. Before that kind of comes in, so
that's the can being kicked down the road. That one.
Yes, that's going to be a challenge. That's going to be a challenge to get that done. Maybe they're looking ahead for an election to try and get that done, but that seems a long time to kind of keep that in place. The bill will require all state funding schools, including academies, to teach the national curriculum. I was amazed by this, to be honest with you, that some academies had gone off on a different path. And not teaching some of the kind of basic national curriculum.
Are you suggesting that some academies have a different rule for them than the rest of us?
Well, they've obviously been allowed to get away with it, because
I wonder how would that happen?
This hasn't been kind of flagged. This means parents can be assured that their child's getting the benefits of the reform curriculum, no matter what type they would. And I think within that, what's kind of irked the Conservatives is that within that they feel like that's an attack on the academy trusts, and that's an attack on kind of what they're doing. I know Laura Trott's been doing the kind of media rounds, basically calling it she used the phrase wrecking ball.
Education and vandalism. It was the phrase that was used, education and vandalism, and how dare they touch the academies. And they quoted Michaela Trust, which, the music department at GCSE there would be really servicing Robbie Williams, wouldn't they? I mean, they're
a school that have made that choice, haven't they, to go with a certain.
And they're very successful, and you cannot argue with the results. Yeah. But if every school in the country was doing what they are doing, we would have no Ed Sheeran and Robbie Williams. So I acknowledge that. I admire that. But unfortunately, I think in education at the moment, there's been lots of games being played, and I think we need to get the reality and the facts before policy. And I think evidence-based policy is what's needed from the government. And what worries me is they should have had this evidence by now, and they should be going ahead. What worries me really is that previous sort of incarnations of Labour government, like 97, had a clear vision for education. We know education, a building program. When they arrived in power at that stage, they had, education ministers like Blunkett, and they knew exactly the direction they were going to go. The 50% going to university. I don't know yet that I'm getting a vision or an overarching, this is what we want to do with education. There's a lot of good mood music, a lot of, as you say, stuff that's been talked about that I think is common sense. So credit where credit's due. But they need to move a lot quicker. And unfortunately, judging from the political storm that's now been created around the grooming gangs and everything else, I don't know if they're going to be able to get to that, because they have to cut through all this other stuff. So I'm sympathizing with them, but I think they need to move a lot quicker. Yeah, and that's, I don't think they can.
Just lastly, then there's some stuff around kind of school places and councils and schools working together, but there's also this kind of the other thing that's kind of I guess kind of poked the hornet's nest, as it were, with the Tory party, is the fact that this kind of forced academisation is kind of also off the table. I'm guessing.
I don't know why they were upset. They'd actually themselves said they weren't going to do that. That's selective amnesia from the Conservative Party, because they had actually said that before the last election, that they'd stopped that policy. I think that came in 2 years ago, that they'd stopped forcing schools to academise. You're going, had you not already? Why are you criticizing these guys for doing the thing that you do? And this is what worries me again about politics and education, is the politicization of education, is that, you can't turn around and say, hey, that's a good policy, even though it's not our policy. well done, that party. We agree with that. So it's ironic to say this, but we need a bit more consensus on education and almost the depoliticization of that. They can sit down and go, actually, you know what, you come up with that policy, but you know, for the benefit of our children, I actually think that's a good idea. Breakfast clubs, you know what, that's your policy. Everything seems now, even when we in education think it's a good idea, seems to be pushed back. No matter what is proposed, it just seems to be, oh, that's not going to work. And you think, actually, come on, we have to have something. You can't just shoot everything down. And is that the way it's going to be? Everything that's going to be.
I think that is their strategy. Watching Newsnight last night, I think kind of that is their general strategy. They're also kind of obviously got some key points there about kind of home education and safeguarding as well. I'm not kind of doing them a disservice tonight, but we have done previous conversations about that with missing children and safeguarding and home education and COVID and stuff. So please go back through our back catalogue. We're not kind of shirking them. We only had a small amount of time to talk about kind of a massive bill, but I thought it's important to cover tonight. So thanks for listening. I'll just say thank you again for the sponsor of the show, John Katz. Publishers of professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. You can see the website at the bottom. USA Study at usastudy.co.uk. Your students could go and study in the USA. They offer a one-stop platform to guiding students through their college application journey. There's loads of resources there for universities, programs, scholarships, application requirements, all in one place. Easy to access tools, personalized timelines, expert tips, application templates, exclusive webinars, etc. on there. So visit usastudy.co.uk because every student deserves the opportunity to shine with USA Study. And again, our event coming up on the 1st of March. And we've got Mr. P, Katie Jones, Vic Goddard, Brent Poland, and Adam Spence doing a Education Tonight live. And you can go to ttrradio.org to get your tickets today and see what else available. And
these things always come with freebies. Just putting that out there, no pressure, and we do have sponsors. There's always nice little discounts to be had from some of the sponsors as well. So it's worth a thing, and the social aspect's really good as well because it's really good.
And you only charge like a $5 for a selfie, Brent, don't you? So you're fairly kind of economic for teachers that want that kind of selfie when you meet your hero. So just to kind of say, as always, that you can listen to watch our back catalogue on lots of platforms, Spotify, YouTube. You can go and visit our kind of shows there. Back in the saddle, Brent. Feel like the first day back.
Oh, I love it. Sorry, it's ranty tonight. I'm a bit rusty, I'm just getting all those frustrations out.
It's doing a show on your birthday, isn't it? So you need to go off and blow out your candles, and we'll see you next week. All the best. Look after yourself. Wrap up warm tomorrow. It's going to be cold. See you next week. Goodbye.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused